auroras tonight as the solar wind continues to blow. Now, that last graphic, Bill will bring it back up. It's a bombshell revelation from Popular Science. Again, all mainstream, all verified, all credible, all relevant. Mysterious solar activity found to influence behavior of radioactive materials on Earth. This might be a positive news story. It's surprising scientists because, according to their new study, and the study does not explain why it happens, but we are talking about changing rates of radioactive decay. They are talking about solar flares potentially helping the planet deal with radioactive contamination. The study, of course, does not explain whether decay change happens. It currently violates the laws of physics as we know them. And so this is going to be an interesting story to follow. Of course, I want to state this. Mysteries are wonderful. They keep us on our toes. A fool expects to find answers to his questions before he asks it. A wise man asks a question regardless of the existence of an answer. It's simply asking the question. Last but not least, then we'll talk with our friend Gary Benton. 6 planets now aligned in the dawn skies. 2012 coming earlier than expected. Astrologers view planetary alignments as foretellers of disasters, while others view it as a completely irrelevant event. But you can take a look at this headline. It is a rare event. I don't remember anyone predicting that 6 planets were going to be aligned in the dawn sky, but it is in the news. Okay, Gary is in Mississippi, and he just revised his book. Now, you can go ahead and go to his website and check it out, simplesurvival.net. This survival and outdoors book is over 308 pages in length and is for your enjoyment, reference, or perhaps to get you thinking about survival preparedness. Gary has over 40 years of wilderness outdoors experience, and he's camped in various states and countries, as well as under some of the most extreme weather conditions, having camped in the steaming jungles of the Philippine Islands, the frozen Arctic north of Alaska, the sandy beaches of Mexico, and the burning deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. He feels his knowledge base is extensive. Gary has attended the following military survival schools: basic survival training, water survival training, jungle survival training, and Arctic survival training. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. How about you, Alex?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to have you on. Give us an update on some other things that are taking place down your state of Mississippi. I believe you told me that your state was one of the first to get hit.
Yeah, that storm front apparently moved through probably just within a couple of miles of my home south of us, and then moved into Alabama. We had heard some rumors from friends that were monitoring the weather a little closer than we were at the time, and they warned us that this was going to be a pretty rough front. I took some preparations, removing things from the yard that didn't fly around and kind of battening down the hatches, if you will, getting ready for that, and it messed us. But about 3 o'clock that morning, my wife woke me up, and the wind was just howling, and the rain was pounding on the roof, and it looked pretty bad for a while there. And then it kind of came and went in cycles where we were at. And then it eventually blew over away from us. And, of course, I guess along the way it just destroyed a number of small towns in Mississippi, then entered Alabama, and unfortunately, that's when a lot of the destruction and deaths occurred.
Yeah, I've heard that where some of these tornadoes are taking place is close to the Madrid fault line.
Say that again, please?
The Madrid fault line, where FEMA's been doing a number of major disaster drills recently. In fact, they bought millions of MREs in preparation for such a massive earthquake. I heard, and is this correct, that where the tornadoes are taking place is close to the Madrid fault line?
No, I'm not aware of that, the correlation there. I'm still somewhat shocked by just the massive destruction. I mean, it just tore the place to pieces.
What is the accurate death toll? I'm seeing different numbers from different reports.
No one knows yet, not from what I understand, and I'm just listening to the news like everyone else. The mayor was talking from Tuscaloosa this afternoon that they still have a number of folks missing, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be fairly high.
Well, let's get into your book. Tell us a little bit more about your experience in the military and what you learned.
Well, the military exposed me to a lot of different things. All those survival schools were challenging. I actually taught aircrew members how to survive in the event they went down worldwide, but as a life support instructor. And thousands of people probably passed through my classroom over the period of 12 years, because we had classes every 2 or 3 days during the week. And most of them were extremely interested because they never knew when they might have an emergency or, in the event of combat, be forced down in an environment that was foreign to them,
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult for some people to go from a nice, safe environment, or so it feels at the moment, to suddenly find themselves in a life and death situation where your decision is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
You make the wrong one, you may die. If you make the right one, of course, you continue living. So what we try to do is to get people, our students, to stop, think, consider the consequences of what you're about to do, and then act.
Right, simple awareness. I moved out.
Right, situational awareness is probably a better term for it.
Right, and it's not fear-mongering, and it's not a bad thing to be prepared and be aware. I actually moved outside of Portland a couple months ago. I guess you can consider it the country. It's a little bit past Estacada. Now, when I'm driving around those roads, I need to be very aware of my environment. There might be a truck much larger than my '85 Toyota, little pickup truck, coming around the side, maybe crossing the line. I have to be absolutely aware, and so that's a perfect metaphor, I feel, for being aware about the challenges coming around the corner, especially with these tornadoes taking place right now.
Yeah, it's a good comparison, because in both situations, if you're distracted or inattentive for a few seconds, it could result in injury or death.
Mm-hmm.
Very easily.
Now, I'm looking forward to reading your book, and I'm sure it's arrived in the mail by now. What do you feel are some of the most essential things we should cover tonight?
Well, I think one of the first things is people should try to throw away the feeling of denial that it can't happen to them, because it can very well happen to them. You may not camp, you may not hike or be a hunter, but in the event of a flooding situation where the water is polluted or contaminated from oils, gases, and that sort of thing, you can find yourself trying to find drinkable water. You can find yourself suddenly in an environment that's totally alien to you, because Americans have, I think, over the years, become fairly dependent on luxury items like microwaves, throwaway meals, plastic and paper, and they've forgotten the basics, how to cook with a campfire, how to sleep outside comfortably, how to stay dry, how to stay warm in wet or cold environments. I think a lot of things that we do today have taken away some of the skills that our ancestors had and took for granted that everyone knew. We no longer have those skills, and they're no longer taught, and they're not necessarily needed in our day-to-day lives. But all it takes is one natural disaster, and a disaster can happen anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, as a matter of fact, or take a wrong turn during a snowstorm, or be in an airplane when it goes down, or in a boat when it sinks, and you can find yourself in a very, very frightening situation. I think some things that we need to cover was on those 10 things that's in the book on 10 rules to survive by, because those are crucial. And one of those is always be prepared to survive. Always. No matter what's going on around you, things can change in a matter of seconds. In just a few minutes, a bad storm can pop up, or you can find yourself taking a wrong turn on a road. So be prepared. And part of that preparation is having survival gear. We keep survival gear in our home, and we also have some in our truck. It's nothing elaborate. You don't need a whole lot of things. I mean, for instance, a pocket knife is recommended, plastic water bag, freezer bags, matches, flint and steel, And I always carry 3 different methods of fire starting because fire is crucial. Water purification methods, either use bleach, purification tablets, or boil your water. I carry a long strip of heavy-duty aluminum foil because I can cook with it, I can boil in it, I can do just about anything with it. I can even signal with it if I have to by catching the sunlight on the aluminum foil. A fishing kit, nothing real elaborate. You just need some hooks and sinkers and stuff. And you can actually catch birds with those things if you bait the hook.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Commercial backpacking first aid kit. Look those over closely. I carry a small one. And the goal for this kit is just to treat basic cuts, bruises, burns, those sorts of things. Nothing elaborate. Small pack of gum and a little bit of hard candy for energy. A casualty blanket, sometimes called a thermal blanket. It's just a wraparound type blanket that's got a metallic-looking surface on it that helps retain body heat. And you can put chicken broth, the bouillon type cubes, or instant broth type packages. A whistle, because a whistle's heard much further than a human voice. And something most people don't think about, Alex, in these emergencies is your prescription medications, if you have them, and special needs for any of your family members. Those are very important because once you're out in the woods or once that natural disaster tears part of your home up, what you have in that house or what you have on you is what you have to survive with.
Right. So for those with maybe some extra income, once they get all prepared, there's also maybe some suggestible options for buying things that could be bartered with, whether it be booze, tobacco, chocolate. Those are other things that could be traded with. One thing that's also on your list that I've mentioned in the past, although people giggle at it, is non-lubricated condoms, a very useful tool.
Yeah. The one thing I want to caution with that, though, is they break very easily when you use them for water storage. So if you inadvertently set them down in the wrong place, you're going to have a wet spot. So I would suggest that you fill them up and place them on something very soft to keep them from being punctured.
What do you go and do in terms of food storage in the book? What do you recommend at the very top?
Well, I don't worry about food a whole lot. I'll be honest with you. Food is, most Americans, let's face it, we're a little bit overweight.
I agree.
I mean, we're probably the heaviest people as a nation. I don't know that for a fact, but, we eat a lot, we eat well, and that's a sign, I think, of successes as Americans. But food is really not that important. We can go 2 or 3 weeks without food if you're healthy and you're in good physical condition. Water is your primary concern, but let's take food for an instance. Since you brought it up, if you're in a natural disaster, for instance, the first thing you'd want to do is eat the perishables first. Anything in the refrigerator, the meats, the fresh produce, those sorts of things. Get those out of the way because they're the first thing that's going to go bad on you. And then you can also store things that'll last for a long time, like beans, pasta, other things that can go in containers. Now, if you get the book, there's an actual listing in there of what can be stored, the shelf life of these various items, and how they can be stored properly to increase their shelf life a little bit. If you're in doubt, look at the best buy date that's on the lid of the container of the product, or best used before date, and go with that. Water, believe it or not, should be rotated about every 6 months. That's what I've been reading and researching. Bottled water. And that's the stuff you would buy in the gallon bottles down at the store. And I would recommend you pick up about a gallon a day per person and try to have 14, 15 gallons of that stuff sitting around in the basement or in a storage room if you've got one. Now, a lot of people don't realize in the event your water mains break or the lines get ruptured or any number of things can happen to the home, you still have 40 gallons. Usually, that's the normal size for a lot